while the kids, while the
Like, are we getting people on?
Hey, are we good? Yeah. Hey, gather your stuff. We're all getting ready for art lessons today. We'll start right at 1 o'clock. So get your papers, your pencils, watercolor or something to add color, things that will make circle tracing shapes. So lots of those. Tate's sitting down, and y'all tell me when it's 1 o'clock, and we'll get ready. I'm so excited. This is a good one today. I love this. Okay? Are we good? It's 1 o'clock. Hey, it's 1 o'clock. Welcome to art class. We're so glad you're here. I'm super excited about today. But before I start, I did not tell my niece yesterday happy birthday in Texas. She was actually born in Scotland, so she has technically 2 birthdays. She has the day she was born in Scotland, which was actually a different day in Texas, which is where her family's from. And so yesterday was her birthday, so happy birthday, Isla. And then I also had a very special request from a mama. I want to tell you, Julia, happy 11th birthday, and I hope it's filled with creativity. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started. And we are going to talk about a fabulous artist. This is a super wonderful artist to learn about because he's crazy interesting. I'm going to do the best. I'm from Texas, but I live in Kentucky, so I have a combination Southern accent. So when I try to say his Japanese name, I hope it comes out correctly. But his name is Katsushika Hokusai. And there you see his name right there. Keaton, does that show up without glare? He is most well known for what we call the Great Wave. And the thing about this artist, which is so neat, is that it also shows you how some of our art lessons all tie in together. Because he was an artist that was influenced from Western art, so Renaissance art. We just talked about Leonardo da Vinci on Monday. When he was able to see some of the woodcuts that were able to come in Japan, he was influenced by that, and particularly by perspective, Western perspective. The Asian perspective is traditionally known as elements go higher up on the page rather than receding to a vanishing point. And then the Western perspective is known as the vanishing point perspective. So he used those, and then even more interesting, his work was so influential, it then influenced later artists back in Europe, such as Degas and Claude Monet, and now he's influencing you. So the other thing that this artist, he's super fun to learn about. He started drawing at age 6. So if you're 6 years old out there, here's a famous artist that started at age 6. But the best part is he painted art his entire life. And he did his most famous work at age 70. So you have all the way starting at age 6 doing so many things. Not only that, this is really fun. Japanese artists at the time were known to change their names according to where they were working. So kind of like we talked about Leonardo da Vinci's name was of Vinci, his location. That might change with Hokusai's name when he was working in a different art studio or doing a different career. So he had, during his lifetime, about 30 different names. So that's neat to know. He also, if he had lived today in the age of social media, he would have been a YouTube or an internet star. He loved to get out and make a big show. One of the best stories, which is pretty funny, is he was performing in an art competition in front of a shogun, and the artist that was in residency was doing a beautiful painting. And Hokusai decided that he would draw a blue line to represent a river, and then he picked up a chicken, dipped the chicken's feet in red, and walked the chicken across his canvas. And what that was supposed to represent were maple leaves going over the river. But he liked to make a show. He painted giant paintings with a broom and ink and did all sorts of fun stuff. This guy is full of awesome facts. So if you want to read something interesting, Art can come to life right here. Read about this particular artist. But with all that being said, I want to tell you a little bit about the lesson. We're going to talk about his woodcut series. He worked in many different things. If I have any tweens or teenagers watching, you'd be very interested to know that one of his most famous series was manga. So manga, the word manga, you might have seen this or you might have seen your kids draw this, is known, the translation is random drawing. So doodles, cartooning, that type of thing. So he did a manga series that was very famous, and that was in the early 1800s. That's when this artist is living. So you should know that he's running around late 1700s and early 1800s. So he did a series on manga, and then he really started developing woodcuts. He was actually trained to cut woodcuts himself, but then he moved into the process which a lot of traditional artists would, where they would design the drawing and then a woodcut artist would cut it. And I brought a sample. This is a linoleum cut, which is very similar, but it's going to give you that look to see, and I'm going to try and hold it and see if you can see, a woodcut is actually carved out. So, and you notice it's in reverse. I liked this one because it said Christmas in reverse. But can you see the texture when I move it? Can you see that on camera, Keaton? So it would actually be carved out. He would have done the drawing and carved it out, but in reverse when we're doing printmaking. And then it would have been inked separately. Each part of the picture, which I'm going to open it up to. Oh, I had it marked. There it goes. Each part of the image would have gone, so anything that's in the blue would have been a separate block. Anything that's in the light blue would have been a separate block. And you see our little tiny boat poking out. Can you see the passengers there? And then you have the boats riding in the waves. You have Mount Fuji. The background would have been a separate block. So that would have been painted. And this is one of several series. He did books. He did so many things. It's so fun. I get so excited about it because I want you to understand learning about history of art, like art that's already happened before us, influences every artist to date. So Leonardo da Vinci and other Renaissance influenced this Japanese artist, which then influenced other European artists, which then influenced you. So today, as you sit right now in your house, you are part of history. You are part of making art in the history. So what we have is this wave. You might have seen this before. If you happen to have access to any Apple product, Apple mobile device, you might have noticed an emoji. Does anyone know where the Great Wave emoji is? Well, now you know where that comes from. That's how famous this picture is. And part of it is because we're going to talk a little bit about something we learned on Monday, the perspective, the fact that here's our vanishing point, our horizon line is hidden, and this would have come all the way with the wave being the closest in the front. So we're going to represent that using some interesting techniques before. Does anyone have any questions on our artists, which obviously I really like? And so what we're going to do is try and represent some of these. I want you to notice how the waves right here, they almost look like little fingers, like as though the wave is coming to life. But it's a different pattern than what's underneath here. Remember, art is all about looking at those details, looking at all those things. So we're going to use our circle shapes to represent these fun, interesting lines and put those in there. So I'm going to leave that up. Can you see it? It may not stay because I love that. And then I'm going to ask Tate to come on over here, and we're going to make sure you have your supplies in front of you. So you should have some paper and pencils, something that you can draw on. and paint on. You should have watercolors, and if you don't have watercolors, anything that makes color. Remember, if you happen to catch yesterday's, if you use a watercolor marker, you can use that and add a little water and paint with that. If you just have crayons or colored pencils, you can utilize those same things. Then I need you to have some shapes. So any kinds, I have plastic lids and tape rings. I love tape rings because you actually get 2 circles for the price of 1, inside and out, larger and smaller. I have coffee lids. That ties into yesterday where we had our coffee. Play-Doh right here. Anything that has a circle shape. And I want you to have a variety. You see how I go smaller and larger? Because we're going to use those to help represent and create a creative composition for our wave. Now, and brushes and water, obviously. So, what I want to happen is, Tate, you want to get to your paper, babe? If you notice right here on our wave, it's going to come up. You see this shape right here? So we're going to do a big wave shape. I want you to do that on your page. You do give me a big wave shape. And then the wave is coming back down here. Now, if you notice, there are lots of lines in the wave. So we're going to put some more of those lines. Yep. Right here. You got to have your lines there, Tate. Yep. Keep putting your lines in there. I lost my bookmark in here. I have to find my great wave back open for everybody to see. So then we had, did you see right here, we're going to make it come back over here because we want our mountain right there in the middle. So we're going to come back over here. Another big swoopy line. Come all the way. Can you stand back a little bit? You're going to come all the way over here. Yep. Yep, and bring it all the way to the end of your paper, right there. Then we're going to make it come down a little bit just like another wave, right there, like that. Yep, keep going. Good job. Okay, then we're going to come in here, and it doesn't look like much yet, and we're going to add one more line here. Yep, there you go. Now, what I want you to see is we're going to start taking our circles, and I'm going to start with my biggest shape. Do you want to use this one? You want to use the tape? And I'm going to start creating that sea foam up here. So I'm going to trace my circle shape right here, just like that. You have yours, Tate. And then I'm going to repeat it a few times, overlapping. Let's see, my board's moving a little bit. Can you see that okay? And let's put a third one on here, Tate. Make sure they overlap. Make sure they overlap like that. Okay. You good? And make sure, see where it comes down in here? That's overlapping. You want to see the circle. You want to see this kind of overlapping. Okay. Now I'm going to switch to a little bit smaller. You want to pick one that's a little bit smaller. How about this one? Right there. And we're going to keep going with the same idea. So I'm going to put this one here, and I'm going to trace around it. Let Tate get his. Okay, and then, I'm going to come down the wave a little bit because the foam comes all the way down. So let's put another one right here, this big size. Let's go one more. I'm gonna let this one be a little bit further away. Yep. Anywhere you want, baby. There you go. How's everyone doing?
I think they're still tracing and
Tracing circles. Tracing their circles. Oh, it's okay. We get it. Sometimes it's hard because we're having to do them up on the paper. Okay. So as everyone keeps going, you want to get a smaller circle. We're going to get our next smaller circle. And we're going to keep going. So now make sure your circles are overlapping. See how you want to make sure, yep, exactly, they go in. So I'm going to come down here. Up. Okay. And then I'm going to tuck one, don't worry about it. I'm going to tuck one right over here. We're going to do a lot of circle tracing.
Is it okay if your composition goes off the paper?
Yes, it's actually wonderful if your composition. That's part of the appeal of this artwork, that when your composition goes off the paper, that's also known as an exploded image, like it exploded past the borders of your page. So you notice you can't see the rest of the image, so it goes off the paper. Don't worry if your wave comes off the top. The idea is we want to get this whole swoopy wave feel. Can you see that? I don't know if that will stay. I'll put my other book right in here. Maybe that will work. Okay. You ready to keep going? Keep tracing. And I'm trying to stand to the side as I trace. It's a little hard to... Yep. And we're going to keep going down. Whoop. My easel's not very tight today. Keep going down. Keep going down the wave. And we're trying to kind of create a bubble composition that goes along that swoopy curve on that wave. So right here, Tate, we may add one right up here so we get that curve like that. You want to add one right there? Here, why don't you use mine? See, I'll swap with you. Here, if you're drawing with someone, swap with what they're tracing right now and see how that goes.
Mary would like to know, is there such thing as too many circles?
There are only too many circles if you start losing that wave, this wave shape. But see, we're going to kind of come in and we really want to concentrate around here. But Tate, I'm going to add a few, just a few down here. Not in the big ones, but just in the smaller ones. Yep. You good? Why don't you give me another one up here, Tate? We're going to keep that. Yep. You want to keep that wave going like that. Yeah. Okay, now make sure you're getting the whole circle. Sometimes it's hard to do that, but don't worry about it. Oh, Mommy did it too. Look, oh, he called me on it. So now I'm going to start working smaller and smaller. We started with the big ones, and I'm going to start adding some smaller ones along here. Yeah, I'm just going to keep going, Tate, because I like this small one right here. Keep going. I might add a few more over here. So how are your waves coming? Oh, that's a good wave. Why don't you give me some more over here so it's kind of going down slowly. Okay. We should really start having a great wave. I'm going to just draw some circles in here because I didn't get anything really small. You can just draw a few small ones in there. Good job. Okay, I'll let you finish putting your circles in, but you want to get that feel of that wave coming like this. Okay, you can add some more in if you want, Tate. It's up to you. And we'll let everyone get caught up. So what we're doing is we're contrasting just like our artist today did with these lines and then these more organic shapes. Circles have that flow and that curve to it, and then these lines all follow in a very linear fashion. So by doing the circles and the lines, we get the line of the wave, and then we start creating a foam type feel. And what does that is the overlapping effects. It makes you think of bubbles. Your mind immediately reads it as bubbles, and which makes it a good way to represent waves. Now, we're going to miss the most important thing, because he did a whole series of the Great Wave, which when we are able to get to go visit some of our greatest museums, you can see some of these prints. The Chicago Art Institute has one, so if you're anywhere near Chicago, I believe the Metropolitan Museum in New York has one, and there's a museum in Los Angeles. It slipped my mind, but I know there's one in LA. So if you're on the West Coast, the East Coast, up in Chicago, you can actually get to go to the museum and see one of his Great Wave prints, all in person, which is always wonderful when you can actually see where the artist's hands have touched. Do we have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
What other ways can you use this technique? For example, Maggie wants to know if you could use this technique for trees.
Actually, Maggie, that's a great example. Thank you for a good question. So when you think of trees, you think of that trunk being very linear, and then you think of those leaves having that organic feel. So you could use this as a fun way to represent. And parents, that's an awesome way to get your kids, lots of kids like to draw the circle trees, which are wonderful, but talk about how when we start overlapping those, we start really, when we go outside and we look at the trees, there's leaves overlapping, there's bigger clumps of leaves overlapping. So Maggie, 100 bonus points to you. Great question. Thank y'all so much for sending your questions. And as always, if I go too fast, or from where you are, or if you want to review anything and learn about our artist or any of these techniques, I post these right afterwards to Facebook and to YouTube at Kisa Hausman, which is spelled really funny, so we'll put it on Facebook for you. So we have to add the most important art.
Color.
Well, you're right, color, but there's a little thing very important, and it's where our perspective comes from. That is Mount Fuji, which Talia, who's on the camera, has been to Mount Fuji. Yeah, Mount Fuji right there.
What time is it?
Fuji. What time is it? It's time to draw Mount Fuji. So let's go. Okay, so we're going to put Mount Fuji down in here. You ready? So just give our little mountain right there. Yep. So we're going to remember that's our mountain way off in the distance. And now's the fun part. Color, that's right. So we're going to try and watercolor on these papers. These aren't necessarily receptive and they're vertical, but I think that's the best way to show you what's going on. So we're going to work mostly in the colors, the colors that Hokusai uses. Hokusai uses are blues, creams, whites, grays, and browns. I did not put the boats in, but please feel free to do that if you want to at any time during this lesson. So we're going to get blue, and we're going to get the darkest blue we have. So let's see. I put a dark blue over. Oh, that's a good dark blue. And I put one over there for you. Yep, that one right there. That's a real dark blue. So we're going to get that darkest blue we have. And we're going to try and go where our lines are. So it may drip on us, Tate. If it does, I've got...
Kind of like the wave. This wave was
That's a good point. So we're going to put some of our linear in there.
What effect would using warm colors in contrast have on this painting?
So you can use warm colors at any time. When it's a print, sometimes there are not as few, and this is a time when they're using only natural dyes, although he was able to use this blue because they had come up with a synthetic, because blues were very expensive at that time. So why? Because it's a lot of it was a precious pigment. So some of it came from gemstones, some of the blues, but the mineral pigments were rare. So what would happen anytime you put warm against cool, you get a direct contrast. So right now you have a very soothing, atmospheric composition. So it all feels, it has a mood to it. Atmospheric is a mood, like when you walk in a room and it feels cozy, or if you walk in a room and it feels very stark and like you don't want to sit down. This has, because all the colors relate, even the yellow has a very cool tone to it. If you did warm colors with it, which when she's talking about warm colors, she's talking about things that are hot. So think of fire or the sun, red, yellow, orange. It's going to have a very bright, contrasty picture. So it might feel more like a day at the beach versus a great wave coming up on a cloudy, rainy day. So continue on with your blue. That was a good question too. Y'all are thinking. I love it. I love it, love it. Okay, we're going to continue with our dark. Very good on your darks, Tate. Want good darks on there. I'm going to try and get mine covered in. Now, I am not painting necessarily inside my circles. I'm avoiding them right now at this point. And also at any time, if you want to paint it in different colors, you go ahead. This is your artwork. I'm using colors to help show you some of the things about the technique, but it means you can add your colors. You can add boats, you can add a sunset, you can add whatever you want. It's your work of art. So, okay, you still add your wave in there, Tate? So you should end up having your lines in there. How are we doing? It's always fun when you get to start adding color. You need some more water, babe? Make sure you have lots. With watercolor, you always want to have lots of water. There you go. I'm going to use some of his on there. Now we can continue. We're going to finish with this, but we may not do it during the lesson. I'm going to save that for you to do at home so we can get into our wave right here. So now while Tate's finishing, I'm going to switch you to a bigger brush, honey. Here you go. Try that brush. Go ahead and set it down right there on the table. There you go. Yeah, keep this down on the table right there. Okay.
What effect will layering different shades and tints of blue have on your painting?
We're going to show you. That's an excellent question. So as with watercolor, watercolor is always great when you layer it. When you layer a different color on top, It depends. If it's blue, it will continue to get darker. If you mix any of the primary colors, all three of the primary colors when painting at any time, you will end up with a brown tone. So if you have any part of red, yellow, and blue all in the same, you'll end up with a brownish tone. Layers of blue, you'll get beautiful depth. Oh, it's part of your wave. Don't worry about it. Just let it keep going. Good deal. Okay, so how's everyone doing on their wave? I'm going to let Tate kind of get his finished, and then we're going to talk about the sky. So what happens when you want to leave something light, you paint everything around it, and it really makes it stand out from the paper. So what is the lightest part of our picture here? The crest of the wave. So what we're going to do is I'm going to keep with that same gray tone for the sky. If you would like your sky to be a different color, but we're going to steer away from blue. Mainly, if you notice, this is not blue here. So normally you would have a blue sky. So if you want a sunset sky and you want to mix those warm colors, you can do that. But let's steer away from blues and let's keep all our blues on our ocean for today. I'm going to go with a gray. And Tate, what color would you like to use? Would you like to use a yellow? How about you use that yellow for your sky? Tate's going to use a bright, nice color. I'm going to make sure he's going to use our homemade watercolors on here. Let me make sure this will come out. Yep. Okay, so you're going to paint around your things on there.
I thought we were supposed to color it gray because it was supposed to be a thunderstorm. That's what
It can be, but yours is going to be a sunny day and mine's going to be gray.
But it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Well, that way they can see what it looks like. Don't you think that'll be good if they can see what it looks like? So notice how I go around it. It actually becomes, instead of a surface of the paper, it becomes a color in our picture.
How do you make gray with paint?
So if you have any black, you can do that. If you don't, what you can do is mix a purplish color. So red and blue make purple. Mix a purplish color and add just a touch of green. And that should end up browning up that purple enough to get you there. If you're only using pencils, you can turn the side of your pencil and you can shade that as well.
How do you make the color cream?
So cream would be, since normally if you're mixing cream in watercolor, it's hard because the white is the white of your paper. We typically don't use a white a lot in watercolor. You would just have to go with a very, very pale yellow. You could add just a hint of brown and you could brush it on there. If you were using acrylic paint, you would mix just a whole lot of white, a touch of yellow, and a touch of brown, and sometimes a little bit of green, and that gets you there. Okay, I'm going to try and do this. Great questions, guys. Go around let Tate get his sky on there. Tate, I really want to splatter, but if I because that's super fun, but if I splatter, I think the parents might not like me. They might be like, now all my kids are splattering in my house.
I mean, you would like it if you were watching another art video.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to try and get it all around here. How's everyone doing?
Good. We've got some requests to see you maybe draw a boat.
Okay. Well, let me get a little bit more into this, and then I'll do a quick boat at the end. So let me think of some other great things, some funny facts about Hokusai. I told you he started at age 6. I told you he worked all the time. He was a very prolific artist. Prolific meaning he worked all the time. He would produced lots and lots of works of art. He would get up very early in the morning and start drawing, and he would draw until till it was too dark to draw anymore. And they estimate he produced over 30,000 works of art. He printed books. He did lots of paintings. He was actually trained to polish mirrors early on because his dad made mirrors. So that's kind of a fun thing to know. Okay. You have yours all yellow around there? You're going to add a little bit more yellow. Can you see how our wave? So now here comes the fun part. While Tate's adding his yellow. I'm going to switch to my lightest color blue. Now, if you only have one shade of the blue, do you remember how watercolor works? The more water you add, the lighter the color gets. So, the more water you add, you'll have a lighter blue. So I'm going to go with a pretty light blue. And Tate, when you're ready, I'm going to help you too. I'm going to get yours wet. You have to add a lot of water all the time to watercolor. When I teach water classes to adults, I'm always saying, no, don't forget, add water. Don't forget, add water. Don't forget, add some water. So, okay, you ready for your blue? Let's go ahead and, that looks fabulous. That looks fabulous. Okay, so I've got you're going to use that blue, and I'm going to come over here and use this. Now, oh, it's on watercolor. It doesn't matter as much. So we've got all these overlapping. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these shadows in here by painting some of our overlaps. So do you see how where this comes, this circle comes, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 shapes. I'm just going to pick one shape in here to paint. Right here. See how that works? And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paint one other shape. And I'm going to move around the picture, painting some of those overlaps, but not all of them. How's everyone doing? So you see how we start creating by drawing those overlapping circles. You have created all these little pockets or things to highlight. So, okay. Oh, you're good. You're good. Keep going. There are no mistakes in art, honey. There's just a change in your design. So, I'm going to go a little quickly on this. You keep going because I want to show you real quickly how to put a boat in. Excellent job, Tate. We have any questions, Talia, or everyone is being a rock star?
Everyone's rocking and rolling.
Oh, I love it. Great job, guys.
We had a lot of people helping each other out answering questions.
Oh, thank you so much. That helps us a lot because we try to get to all the questions. And I know when you're at home creating and painting, I'm trying to be as much in your kitchen, in your living room as we can be. But sometimes you're like, is this right? Is this right? Yes is the answer. Just try it. Try it. If you get behind, don't worry. You'll catch up. If you aren't sure about something, try it and see what happens. So that's part of the fun of learning and discovering as you go. And you're asking great questions.
Should they put shadow on the bottom wave as well?
Yes. So I'm not going to get down to here because we're going to run out of time. And I want to make sure we're able to give this concept to this idea. Now, this concept of the overlapping circles, you can do some really fun things. It's fun to play with and put in lots of different colors. You can end up with things that look like stained glass and mosaics. And all you had to do was find some things around your house and you created a drawing. It's a great way if you're looking at a piece of paper and you go, I don't know what I'm going to do. just start doing that and creating those shapes and filling in. So just continue with this, and you're going to end up with a really fun, great wave. And if I was going to add a boat, I'm going to you keep filling in. If I was going to add a boat, I'm going to show you. Now, I don't know a lot about the boats in Japan in the mid-1800s, but I see they're very long and skinny, and they have, the people are in the middle, and it looks like they lay flat. I know there are Philippine boats that they lay flat across on kind of like catamarans. And this may be what's going on here. But what I'm going to go with is the idea of a canoe. So we're going to do something long and skinny. So would it help? So if we're doing this, our boat's going to come up like that. And then we're going to come down. Can you see how I did that long, skinny boat like that? And then I'm going to give it, and it looks like they have something that comes across. So you can end up with that. If we were here, we'd probably have oars that came out like so into the water, and you'd get that. And of course, the highlight of our painting is Mount Fuji right here. And it's snow-capped. We're going to color that in and leave that. So, on that note, I'm going to let Tate continue. I'm going to let you finish painting. And I'm going to encourage you to look up. I happen to have 2 of these in my Etsy shop. This is a book about Hokusai, and it has lots of his paintings that you can color and look at the original image. But look him up, research about him. It's really funny. These guys, these women, these artists in history were just like you, sitting at home, painting, doing their thing. And so it's fun to learn about them because you too are wonderful artists, and one day we could be doing a lesson about you. So on that note, we're going to let you go. Keep painting. Continue your artwork. And remember, my favorite quote is, "Art is man's nature. Nature is God's art." I'll see you tomorrow in class.